7 bad karmas for hurting a true dark chosen one. There are people in this world who carry shadows not because they are evil, but because they were born to walk through the darkest realms and return with sacred truths. These are the true dark chosen ones. Not everyone can recognize them. In fact, most people reject them. They're feared, misunderstood, mocked, and often betrayed by the very ones they came to help. But make no mistake, to harm a true dark chosen one is to take on a karmic burden deeper than most can comprehend. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to reveal what most spiritual systems won't tell you, because this kind of knowledge doesn't come from books. It comes from walking through the abyss and surviving it. You see, in every generation, a few are called to carry the weight of ancestral wounds, to transmute generational curses, and to create light in places where even angels hesitate to go. These people often look like rebels, outcasts, or even villains at first glance. But underneath their silence, their solitude, their scars, there is a sacred contract written in the language of soul alchemy. They didn't choose the darkness. The darkness chose them because it knew only they had the resilience to face it without being consumed. So when someone hurts a dark chosen one intentionally or out of ignorance, they are not just hurting a person. They are disrupting a divine mission. And the universe does not take that lightly.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first bad karma for hurting a true dark chosen one is this: your spiritual lineage becomes stained. You may not even feel it immediately. It may show up in your children or your children's children. It may appear as confusion, stagnation, inexplicable loss, or a sense of being blocked no matter how much effort you put in. This isn't punishment. It's energetic consequence. When you interfere with someone who is carrying forward an ancient healing path, especially one formed in the shadow domains, you're not just touching their energy. You're touching the lives they're meant to impact. You're blocking a ripple effect that was supposed to bring healing to others. And karmic law demands balance. So the weight you tried to place on them, it returns. Not always in the same form, but always with the same force. The second bad karma is more subtle, but just as powerful. You become spiritually haunted by what you misunderstood. This isn't about ghosts or folklore. This is about your own inner knowing beginning to torment you. You'll start to feel a quiet unease you can't shake, a sense that something is watching, that something is unresolved. And you'll be right. Because when you hurt someone who was never sent to harm you, but to reflect your deepest truth, you create a mirror you can't escape. Every time you see someone with similar energy, you'll feel it. Guilt, regret, an echo of a soul you tried to dim. And one day, when your own darkness arrives, and it always does, you'll wish you had honored the one who walked through it before you. The third karma is energetic disconnection. You lose access to divine timing. Things stop flowing. Your relationships feel forced. Opportunities vanish just before they materialize. You start living in a loop, repeating patterns, making the same mistakes, attracting the same lessons. Why? Because the universe was trying to reach you through the dark chosen one. They were a sacred messenger, even if their message came in the form of challenge or disruption. And when you rejected them, when you hurt them, you rejected the very catalyst that was meant to unlock your next level. So now, everything stalls. Not because you're cursed, but because you closed a door that was never meant to be shut. Let me ask you something. Not a surface-level question, but one that should vibrate through your soul. Have you ever felt that someone you pushed away was actually sent to wake you up? Have you ever looked back and realized the one you called toxic was actually a mirror of your deepest wounds, the one person who saw through your illusions and loved you anyway? If so, ask yourself, did you harm them? Did you betray them? Did you abandon them when they needed you most? Because if you did, your karma didn't begin when you walked away. It began when you refused to learn. The fourth bad karma is the loss of spiritual protection. You become energetically exposed. Every one of us walks with unseen guardians, forces that guide, protect, and sometimes intervene. But when you harm someone who is divinely assigned, especially one operating from the shadows in service of light, those guardians step back. Not just theirs, yours too. They don't abandon you out of spite. They step back out of alignment, because they cannot support a soul who moves against the sacred order. And suddenly, the things that once slid off your back begin to stick. Your intuition dulls. Your dreams become disturbed. Your prayers feel unanswered, because you crossed a boundary that wasn't yours to touch. The fifth karma is relational distortion. You attract versions of yourself at your worst. The lies you told, they return through other mouths. The betrayal you inflicted, it reappears in someone who breaks your heart. The manipulation you used, it finds you in ways you can't escape. This is karmic reflection at its rawest. And it's not always instant. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes years. But when it happens, you'll feel it. You'll remember. The soul knows. The soul always knows. And the question that will haunt you isn't, why is this happening to me? It will be, who did I do this to first? The sixth bad karma is the closing of spiritual gifts. Your sight dulls. Your energy weakens. Your connection to the divine becomes static. This is especially true for those who claim to be spiritual, intuitive, or empathic. Hurting a true dark chosen one creates a fracture in your energetic channel. You can still talk about spirituality. You can still mimic the language, but the frequency? It's off. The downloads, they stop. You begin to feel like a fraud, even if no one else sees it. Because deep down, you know you moved against the current of your own evolution. You silenced the voice that was meant to guide you deeper. And now, all you hear is the echo of what could have been. And the seventh karma, the most devastating one? You delay your own soul mission. We each come here with a blueprint, a divine purpose. But hurting a dark chosen one, especially knowingly, places a detour on your path. Because the universe can't elevate a soul who violates sacred contracts. You'll feel the delay. You'll feel the emptiness. You'll feel the sense that you were meant for more but can't seem to grasp it. That is the weight of unbalanced karma. And so I ask you, in the quiet space of your own heart, have you ever harmed someone whose only crime was being too real, too deep, too raw for a world addicted to illusion? If the answer is yes, this isn't a call for shame. It's a call for atonement. Because karma isn't punishment. It's a teacher, a mirror. And every lesson can still be healed if you're willing to face it. The soul debt that echoes through lifetimes. There are debts you can repay with money, apologies, or time. But then there are soul debts, those invisible contracts that bind your spirit to a lesson you refuse to learn. Hurting a true dark chosen one creates a soul debt so potent, so ancient, it doesn't simply end when you say sorry. It doesn't disappear with time. It follows you across lifetimes until it is acknowledged, honored, and balanced. This is not punishment, this is spiritual mathematics. The universe does not forget what the ego tries to ignore. And when the debt is against a soul sent to walk through the darkest corridors on behalf of the collective, the weight of that imbalance doesn't just remain, it multiplies. You may not even recognize it at first. Maybe things start going strangely wrong. Maybe the relationships you once relied on begin to fracture. Maybe you feel like something is missing, but you can't put your finger on what. That's how soul debt begins. It shows up as a subtle misalignment, a quiet echo that gets louder over time. And the more you resist it, the more it demands your attention. Because the soul doesn't forget what the mind tries to rationalize. Especially when what you harmed wasn't just a person but a vessel carrying divine shadow work for the collective. A true dark chosen one is not just a spiritual person who's been through pain. They are those rare beings who were marked from birth, or even before, for a path that requires them to carry the density of ancestral, cultural, and sometimes planetary wounds. They don't get to live ordinary lives. Their existence is an initiation. Every betrayal, every abandonment, every injustice they endure is not just for their growth, it's for the alchemy of something far larger. So when you harm such a being, when you lie to them, deceive them, discard them, or try to destroy them, you are not just interrupting their path. You are inserting yourself into a divine equation where your actions now ripple across timelines. And here's the part most people don't realize. The karmic weight doesn't always fall immediately. It waits. It waits for your guard to drop. It waits for your ego to feel safe. Then it begins to unfold not as revenge, but as revelation. You'll start to see in others what you refuse to see in the one you harmed. You'll encounter people who wear the same emotional frequency as the one you betrayed, and they will trigger you. Not because they are wrong, but because they are mirrors of your unhealed act. That's the soul debt knocking. That's the universe saying, this is still unfinished. Have you ever asked yourself why certain patterns keep repeating in your life, no matter how much you change externally? Have you ever felt like you're paying for something you don't remember doing? That's often the signature of soul debt. And when that debt is tied to a dark chosen one, it has its own frequency. It's heavy. It's magnetic. It pulls you back to the same emotional crossroads again and again until you either face it or collapse under the weight of avoidance. One of the deepest truths I've learned, and this comes not just from study, but from walking through the fire, is that the universe always honors the contracts made in spirit. And when a dark chosen one is involved, those contracts are sacred. You may not remember your agreement with them in this life, but your soul does. You may not understand why hurting them created such a strong ripple, but your karma does. And the longer you deny it, the more intense the consequences become, not as punishment, but as a divine effort to bring you back into alignment. You see, when you harm someone who was sent to trigger your awakening, you delay your own evolution. You step out of the spiral of growth and into the loop of repetition. That's the essence of soul debt. It locks you in a cycle until you break the chain with truth, humility, and inner transformation. This isn't about going back and begging for forgiveness. It's about going inward and asking, why did I reject the very person who was sent to help me face myself? Why did I destroy the mirror instead of cleaning the reflection? And when you ask those questions sincerely, something begins to shift. The soul debt doesn't vanish, but it begins to soften. The energy begins to move again, and sometimes the dark chosen one will reappear not to reopen the wound, but to offer one final opportunity for healing. And if they don't return, the lesson will through someone else, through something else, until the balance is restored. So I ask you now, as someone who may be carrying this unseen contract, what would it take for you to finally stop running from the weight you created? What would it take to face it, own it, and free yourself? Because the longer you avoid the soul debt, the deeper it weaves into your destiny. When the wounded become oracles and you become the lesson. There's a strange twist in the path of karma that few ever talk about. It's when the one you hurt, the one you dismissed, betrayed, or pushed aside rises. Not in vengeance, not in anger, but in truth. And in their rising, they become something unfathomable. They become an oracle and a seer, a conduit for divine wisdom that can no longer be denied. And you become the lesson, not just for yourself, but for others watching. You become the example of what happens when someone tries to bury a soul that was already planted as a seed by the divine. This is what happens when the wounded stop bleeding and start speaking, and their voice carries the weight of every scar you thought would silence them. You see, the thing about a true dark chosen one is that their wounds are not liabilities. They are portals. They are initiations. Every betrayal they endure becomes a map. Every abandonment becomes a compass. Every rejection becomes fuel for transformation. And when they finally integrate their pain, when they stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" they become dangerous, not to the world, but to the illusions that run it. They speak with a clarity that makes liars tremble, with a calm that disarms chaos, and with a presence that makes even those who tried to destroy them feel seen in a way they can't escape. And if you were one of the ones who caused their pain, whether knowingly or through your own unconsciousness, you'll feel it. Not because they're coming for revenge, but because they no longer need to. And their very existence becomes a mirror. Their success, their growth, their light, it begins to haunt you, not out of spite, but because it exposes the version of yourself that couldn't see their value when it mattered. You are now the cautionary tale, the shadow in their origin story, the before in their transformation, and the irony. You could have been part of the miracle, but instead you became part of the wound. So the question is, what do you do when you realize you were the storm someone had to survive to find their peace? What do you do when you see the person you tried to break walking in divine purpose, while your own life feels stuck in a loop of almosts and not quites? That's the karma. That's the echo. That's the universe holding up a mirror and saying, "Look, learn, transform, transform." But here's the grace in it all. Being the lesson doesn't mean you're condemned. It means you've been called to rise too, just in a different way. You see, karma isn't here to destroy you. It's here to wake you up. And sometimes, the only way to wake you is to let you see the full impact of your unconsciousness. That's not cruelty. That's mercy in its rawest form. Because if you truly feel the weight of what you did, and not just feel it, but own it, then the universe opens a new path. A path not of punishment, but of redemption. But redemption doesn't come cheap. It requires truth. Deep, uncomfortable, soul-shaking truth. It requires that you stop justifying your actions. That you stop using your pain as an excuse for causing more pain, and that you stop pretending you didn't know better when your soul was screaming at you the entire time. Redemption begins when you say, "It was me. I did that, and I want to change." Not for applause, not for validation, but because the weight of your own reflection has become too heavy to carry anymore. And maybe, just maybe, the dark chosen one will hear your silence. Maybe their soul, in its infinite capacity for compassion, will sense that you're no longer the same. They may never return. They may never speak to you again. But don't let that stop your healing, because your transformation was never supposed to be about getting them back. It was supposed to be about getting you back the real you, the one who lost themselves in fear, pride, or ignorance. The truth is, once a dark chosen one becomes an oracle, they no longer operate in the same dimension you left them in. They've gone deeper. They've seen things. They've become fluent in the language of the unseen. And your apology, if it ever comes, is not for their benefit, it's for yours. Because the real karma isn't just in what you did. It's in what you missed. The chance to evolve alongside someone who carried keys that could have unlocked your next level. That's the heartbreak. That's the lesson. So ask yourself now, not just with your mind, but with your soul, are you willing to become the student of the very story you tried to erase? Are you willing to sit with the truth that someone you hurt has become the guide you now need? That's the medicine. That's the mirror. That's the doorway. And whether you walk through it or not, the universe is always watching. The final reckoning, why the universe defends the silent ones. There's a sacred law woven into the fabric of existence, one that doesn't speak loudly, but moves with absolute precision. That law is this: the universe always defends the silent ones. The ones who were hurt but didn't retaliate. The ones who were mocked but kept their dignity. The ones who were pushed into the shadows yet still carried the light. And the dark chosen ones. They don't cry out for justice. They don't seek revenge. They go inward. They transmute. And because they do, the universe moves on their behalf in ways that defy logic and transcend time. You might think silence is weakness, that the one who walks away or the one who doesn't defend themselves has lost. But that's the illusion this world teaches. In truth, silence is often the loudest language of the divine. When a dark chosen one chooses not to respond to betrayal, not to match your cruelty, not to expose you, they are not being passive. They are stepping aside so the universe can act. And when the universe moves, it moves with force, clarity, and exactness. Every seed you planted in deception, manipulation, or malice begins to bloom, but not in the way you hoped. Because while you thought you were burying someone, you were actually burying your own blessings. The final karma for hurting a dark chosen one isn't always dramatic. It's not fire and brimstone. It's subtle. It's precise. It's personal. It's the quiet unraveling of all the things you clung to for identity, security, and power. The job that meant everything begins to feel hollow. The relationship you thought was your reward begins to decay. The sense of spiritual connection you once had become static. But you might still look successful on the outside, but your soul knows something's missing. That's the reckoning. That's the price of having touched what was sacred with dirty hands. And here's where it gets even deeper. The universe doesn't just defend the dark chosen one, it elevates them. Slowly, steadily, without noise. While your life begins to feel stuck or chaotic, theirs begins to align. They meet the right people. They find their path. They step into their calling. And as they rise, Something inside you aches not because of jealousy, but because your soul remembers. It remembers that you were part of their story, that you had a chance to protect them, love them, honor them, and you chose otherwise. And that memory doesn't fade. It becomes a haunting truth, especially when they no longer even acknowledge you. Their silence becomes your echo chamber. And that's when you realize the universe wasn't punishing you. It was revealing you to yourself. So what do you do when the reckoning finds you? When the mirror turns and your own patterns stare back at you? You surrender. You stop running. You stop pretending. You collapse into honesty, not performative regret, not spiritual bypassing, but raw, gut-wrenching accountability. You strip away the performance, and you sit with the truth of what you did not to punish yourself, but to finally become who you were meant to be before the ego took the wheel. Because here's the gift hidden in the weight of karma: you can still be reborn. You can still choose differently. The road back isn't about recapturing what you lost. It's about reclaiming what you abandoned within yourself. The part of you that was once aligned. The part that could have recognized a sacred soul when it stood before you. And that part is still there, waiting, watching, ready. And maybe, just maybe, the dark chosen one doesn't need to forgive you for your soul to find peace. Because this was never about them needing you. It was about you needing to remember who you are. And if you can remember that, if you can walk through the reckoning without flinching, then the universe won't just forgive you, it will teach you. It will guide you. It will cleanse you. Not because you avoided pain, but because you finally learned from it. So I ask you, one last time, what if the person you hurt was the very soul your spirit agreed to protect before this lifetime began? What if your karma isn't punishment, but a divine invitation to rise from your own ashes? Because in the end, the universe doesn't forget. But it does forgive when you're finally willing to face the truth. And when you do, the reckoning becomes your resurrection.